Hello and welcome to a special extra late night episode of The Backlash. I'm your host, David J. Riley. Rebecca and Cameron are off. It's like 1 o'clock in the morning. I finally got some free time. It's been a crazy week, you know. My oldest daughter has had off school for the week, and so we've also had Halloween. I hope everybody had a very happy Halloween. All Saints Day, All Souls Day coming up. That'll probably be done and over with by the time that this episode comes out. But a happy Halloween season to everybody. There's been a lot going on, and it's just been like a deluge of information and new stuff that's been happening. So much to comment on, so much to talk about. But I know I promised on Wednesday that I would do like a special episode kind of discussing a little bit more in detail some of the stuff that was going on with our meetup that happened on Monday, where people, a special group of people, the Zionist Christians over at Candlelight Christian Fellowship, basically set up me and Rebecca, and they had some friends of theirs call the cops on us because we were daring to meet in public, a bunch of, extremists getting together with other people that share the same exact views to, eat dinner. And, one of the other things that was supposed to happen that night was there was supposed to be a candidate forum on Monday last week with Dan Gukin, who was running for Coeur d'Alene mayor. That election is coming up on Tuesday of this week. And for a long time, we've been kind of butting heads with Dan Gukin. Those of us that live here in North Idaho, he's been not very good of a city councilor. He was in favor of hate speech laws. He was in favor of gay pride parades. In favor of the Pride in the Park event. He voted for a gay ordinance, like a bake the cake type ordinance that came out back in like 2013 or 2014 or something. And so there were some hard questions that we wanted to ask him at this candidate forum that was set up by Stephanie Fetzer from Candlelight Christian Fellowship. But no, they had other plans. They changed their meeting, and then they printed out these flyers. And they handed them out to the food trucks, who then handed the flyers out to their patrons, to people that came to eat. And it's pretty unbelievable what it says. Let me see if I can put it up on screen real quick, just so you can see what we're talking about. I don't know if I'm going to be able to hold it up and have the camera be able to focus on it. Let's see here. Where is it? Do I have it up? I can edit this. Maybe I'll edit this. The technical difficulties always remain. Here we go. So we've got the flyer up on the screen. Hopefully you can see it. This flyer says that we're having a community meetup at Prairie Pavilion. We're bringing our own pizza and beer. Now, of course, like what I say on the program and what actually winds up happening in real life are two totally different things. We did not bring any beer. There was no pizza brought into the pavilion. I don't know what's going on, other than this was a false report that was given to the police, which is a crime, by the way. We went over some of this stuff on the Wednesday episode of the show last week, talking about these allegations that we are a podcast that promotes a unified ideology centered on anti-Semitic conspiracy theories. And as we discussed, we aren't unified in the ideology. We're unified in that we're all Americans. All three of us on the show, me, Cameron, Blonde, we're all white people. And so we should be unified in that we're all white guys. We're all white. We're all American. For the most part, Blonde and I are both Catholic, although, she needs to go to church a little bit more often. No offense. So we're unified in that we get together and we do this show as a unit twice a week, once a week, twice a week. But we engage in a lot of debate, a lot of dialogue. We talk about a lot of different things. And I think that ability to talk is exactly what we've been missing in this country for a very long time. We've had a monopoly on the media. We've had censors and cancel culture that has put guardrails on what we're allowed to talk about and discuss. And so we get together to talk about what our ideology should be, what we should be asking our politicians to do, what we should be asking of our representatives, what we should look for in a leader, what we should look for as a movement, right? So we have those discussions here, but I would take issue with the idea that we have a unified ideology. I have a unified ideology. I'm Catholic, and everything fits in my worldview perfectly, actually. But we'll get more into that in a bit. You know, the flyer says that we hate Charlie Kirk, that Donald Trump allegedly serves Zionist interests. And it says an intense misogyny that blames women's empowerment for societal decline. But, like, that's true. Bitchy women suck. They've, like, ruined everything. So, I mean, listen, if you can't handle the truth, don't watch the show, okay? It says that we have a monarchy agenda on here, which I still don't understand why these people care. Like, yeah, I support a monarchy in France. I think a lot of people do. A lot of the French people do. Louis de Bourbon came out a couple weeks ago. We covered this on the show and said that he'd be willing to reestablish the monarchy in France. That's a good thing. I think that the French Fifth Republic was a disaster. The whole French Revolution was a disaster. Anybody that would come out and start talking about building guillotines and killing their leaders in an act of revolution like that, not a fan. I'm just generally not a fan. It's never really worked out between the French Revolution, the Bolshevik Revolution. Those didn't work out too well. Not a fan. So anyway, it concludes by saying that we risk inciting harm by normalizing anti-Semitism, anti-American sentiment, and attacks on marginalized groups functioning as a radical call for exclusionary control and a rejection of democratic values. My democracy. Oh no, our democracy. What about our sacred democracy, right? Where have we heard this before? Marxist groups, leftist groups, Democrat groups. Anti-American sentiment. And of course, we'll get into this in a little bit. What the establishment is doing right now, the Mark Levins of the world, as Steve Bannon calls them, the venomous coalition. This group of people equates anti-Israel. They equate lack of support for Israel as anti-American. Well, I don't know about that. I mean, I grew up before 9/11. I remember what it was like here before the Patriot Act. Remember the Vault 7 leaks from Edward Snowden about how they were using our TVs and our cell phones to spy on us? And then that's to say nothing about the amount of spying that Israel has done on the United States, covering up the USS Liberty, which was before I was born. But in 2019, when Donald Trump was in office, there was a Politico story about how Israel was spying on the United States. And so I'm against that. I'm against that deep state. I'm against the surveillance state. I'm against Palantir. I'm against Israel spying on us. I'm against China spying on us. It doesn't make me anti-American. And, but as we'll see later, this is all really just AJC talking points, of course, the American Jewish Committee. But one of the things that really concerned me about this flyer that we'll put up on the screen here, let's see, is down in the lower left-hand corner. It says, caution, Catholic equals anti-Semitic. Well, I've got news for whoever made this flyer. That's a hate crime. Sorry, pal, but going to be reporting that one. To equate Catholic, so in order to have like a really good conversation about this, it's important to demystify a couple of things here. There is anti-Semitism, and then there's anti-Semitism. They're two different things. Anti-Semitism, according to Mark Levin and the AJC and the pro-Israel MAGA crowd, the Make Israel Great Again crowd, according to them, anti-Semitism is not supporting Israel enough. It is not unequivocally supporting Israel no matter what they do. They can kill as many prisoners as they want. They can drop as many bombs as they want. They can rape Palestinian prisoners. They can use assets like Jeffrey Epstein and take American children and use them up and spit them out in these sex trafficking rings for blackmail. And if you don't support Israel unquestioningly, if you bring any of that up, if you mention the USS Liberty, if you mention the stranglehold on the American media that pro-Israel groups have had, then you're an anti-Semite. That's what they'll say. They'll say that if you don't support God's chosen people, that you're an anti-Semite. And if you say, hey, wait a minute, time out. They rejected God. They rejected Jesus. They hung Jesus on a cross. And they brought false accusations against him, and they dragged him in front of a kangaroo court. And they rejected him. They killed him. It says so in 1 Thessalonians 2:14-16. It says the Jews who killed the prophets and killed the Lord Jesus and persecute us and are the enemies of the entire human race, to paraphrase St. Paul. Is that anti-Semitism? Is the gospel anti-Semitic? Is Catholicism anti-Semitic? No, it's not. That's not anti-Semitism. That's the truth. And so there is this difference between anti-Semitism, the way that they wield it as a false accusation, as a weapon against their enemies, where they call you an anti-Semite, and it ruins your career, and it ruins your social standing and your reputation, and actual real anti-Semitism, which I don't know if we're going to get into, but if you look into it, you can find the history of that word comes from a German political guy named Wilhelm Marr, who popularized the term in the late 1800s. He was an atheist. He wasn't Catholic. He wasn't Christian. And his policies of anti-Semitism were an explicit rejection of everything that the Catholic Church taught about our relationship with the Jews. And by the way, there's a great book that you can pick up. I highly recommend reading it. It's called The Popes and the Jews in the Middle Ages by Edward A. Sinan. Great book. You can still find copies online. We have a link on our book club at thebacklash.net. By the way, please make sure that you are subscribed to the channel. Make sure you like this video. Forgot to mention that one up front. But if you look at what the program, the way of living between Catholics and Jews, there's a very important document called Sicut Judaeus Non, which teaches that Catholics ought not disturb Jewish houses of worship, Jewish cemeteries, Jewish neighborhoods, shouldn't disturb them. But at the same time, the Jews don't have the right to subvert your culture, to subvert your religion, or to do perverse things in the public square. There's a balance. And if the Jews begin to do these types of things in the public square, then the church doesn't stop people from reacting to the behavior of the Jewish people who spit when they hear the name of Jesus Christ. They spit on Catholic priests in the Middle East. They bomb churches. They kill faithful Catholics. They ethnically cleanse entire neighborhoods, regardless of whether they're Christian or Muslim. And that produces a reaction. And that reaction is what is labeled as anti-Semitism by these AJC, APAC people. And so, in one sense of the term, am I an anti-Semite? Yeah, I guess so. Because I see what they've done in the Middle East. I see what they've done to the media and to Hollywood. And I've seen what they've done in the education system when I ran for school board with critical race theory, DEI, transgenderism. I'm against that stuff. And I'm against the people that came up with these ideas because those people are against Christ. And so if in the eyes of the world that makes me an anti-Semite, so be it. I don't care. But strictly speaking, that's not actual anti-Semitism. Actual anti-Semitism is discriminating against another person because of who their mother was. And that's what the Jews do in Israel. in America. People like Andrew Klavan, allegedly a Christian, who believes that he is more privileged than people who were raised Christian because of his DNA. Let me see if I can pull that clip up.
I want to be clear about what I believe. And you know, this hatred of Jews is a hatred of God. Remember, Paul said that we were grafted on to the tree of the Jews. You were. I wasn't. I was born there. So I outrank all y'all. Okay. So, all right. I'm joking, but still, you know, this God who chose the Jews became everybody's God through Jesus Christ. And I'm going to tell you something.
You see, he thinks he outranks you because of his DNA. He thinks he's special because of who his mother was. I reject that. And if you go back and you look, there's a interview that I did with J.D. Hall. He's this author, polemicist. He runs a Substack. We did a very long conversation about this kind of thinking, which is dispensational Christianity. And so please go back and listen to that if you haven't. It kind of explains some of this stuff. It explains that verse about being grafted on. But that branch itself was broken off and replaced with the church. The church is Israel. It's not a strip of desert in the Middle East. I've maintained that the promised land is heaven. It's not the desert. So anyway, I just wanted to go over a little bit of that because this is crazy. It's crazy that people would call the police on a group of people trying to get together and meet who have similar views. And not only that, but the people that were involved with this. There was a former Department of Homeland Security person, Davalou Cummings, who used to work human trafficking. Well, where was she when Jeffrey Epstein was trafficking children and Ghislaine Maxwell? Where was she? Was she working at DHS? Would she give Jeffrey Epstein a pass? But she's going to stand there with her husband calling back and forth to her friends at Candlelight Christian Fellowship. Oh, yeah, the anti-Semites are here. Quick, have someone call the cops. Unbelievable. And by the way, we got some records requests back, which is one of the reasons why it took so long to get around to doing this video. Casey Whalen has released them on his Twitter, I believe also on Facebook. The 2911 calls came from Taco Works, the taco truck, and the co-owner of Prairie Pavilion, who reported us, falsely claiming that we had brought outside food and alcohol. That was obviously a lie. It was a setup by the people at Candlelight Church who had originally planned a meet and greet with Coeur d'Alene City mayoral candidate Dan Gukin. Stephanie Fetzer purposefully changed the venue at the last minute in a ploy to get her political adversaries in trouble. People should fully boycott Prairie Pavilion and all associated businesses. Any businesses who attempt this type of bullshit in North Idaho deserve to be out of business. That's what Casey Whalen says. I don't even know if we should bother listening to these. We could.
Central Dispatch, how can I help you?
So I was told to call you guys. I work over here at Taco Works in Coeur d'Alene, and we just got a flyer that there's like, I don't know, like white supremacists or something. I don't know. I have the flyer. But they just showed up, and they're in the pavilion, and the owner told me to call you guys and to get you guys to get them out of there because they don't have permission.
Can you verify the physical address?
They don't have permission. Did you hear that? They don't have permit. Well, we don't have permission to like buy food and eat it like any other normal human being on earth. Really? Okay. Good luck. Good luck running a business like that. And so the co-owner called as well. They could, the whole thing is just, it's so childish. It is so childish that these people can't engage in good faith. They can't engage in dialogue. So they call the cops to do their dirty business. Very typical of people who are losing, the argument, who are losing the narrative. And I'm not the only one noticing this. This is happening across the board. I think I started the trend of releasing phone conversations with Pastor Paul Van Noy. I played the clip a while ago. Let's see if I can pull it back up. And the clip was, I was on the phone with him, and somehow Israel came up in this phone call. I was trying to get these people to get off my back, let me alone so I can work. And the topic of Israel came up, and this is what Paul Van Noy said.
And I saw with my eyes what is actually going on over there, not what we're reading about or hearing about in the media.
Right.
And I think, and this for the record, I know that we may disagree here. And David, please, you and I can disagree about a lot of things agreeably, I think. When I see what Israel is doing, I think they have every reason to do it. And I would do more. If it were me, I would do more. Because I would be telling them, give us back our hostages or you're dead. And they keep saying, you're attacking our babies. Then give us back our hostages and we'll stop. I know that's rough language, but they have Americans. Give us back our hostages and we'll stop bombing you. Otherwise, I think Israel is absolutely holding themselves back. Because I'd probably blow the whole damn thing off the map and say, well, there's not going to be such a thing as the West Bank if you don't give us back our hostages. But I know that's crazy talk. I know that you don't want to hear me say that.
Oh, no, Paul. Lay it on me, man. Don't hold back. Tell us what you really think. And he has been telling us what he really thinks. He's been telling his congregation that he's a prophet.
I may be a statesman, but I am a prophet. I am a pastor. I am a spokesperson for God. I'm a prophet. I am a spokesperson for God.
Right? I'm a spokesperson for God. I'm a prophet. A prophet that calls for the murder of innocent women and children. A prophet that condones killing 12 civilians for every one enemy combatant killed. Really? Pro-life? Pro-America? No, I don't think so. No. This is demonic. It's satanic. It's a complete inversion of reality. And that's something else that we get into in that interview that I did with J.D. Hall, is how dispensational theology completely inverts Christianity. Where that phrase that gets thrown around over and over again, if you bless me, you will be blessed, right? And if you curse me, you'll be cursed. And that's talking about Jesus. That's talking about the seed of Abraham, who is Jesus Christ. Not Israel, not the people that rejected Jesus, not the people that had him hung on a cross and put on trial. It's the church. So it's a total inversion. And of course, you see with this stuff with, we're pro-life, and then they go and they bomb kids and they don't say a word about it. It's an inversion. And inversions are satanic. And, there was another clip that got dropped this week. And this one came from a guy who I don't really agree with on much of anything. But this came from Dan Wilson. He was a candidate for sheriff up here. And I don't really like the guy. He's not that smart. But the clip is revealing, and we'll play it.
I'm going to sound very arrogant now. Every politician, everybody running for office always calls my office and makes an appointment to see me. I carry a pretty good weight in our community. And if people want to get to me, they got to get to me the right way. If he knew how much weight my voice carries in this community, I'm sure he would have probably offered to buy me dinner.
Oh, really? Unbelievable. And so the levels of pride, arrogance, hubris, chutzpah, as our Jewish friends would say. If he knew how much weight I pulled in the community, he'd buy me dinner. Paul, it doesn't look like you need anybody to buy you dinner. It looks like you need to hit a treadmill. And so this is a pastor in Coeur d'Alene who has been fomenting a group of people who get together regularly, which we know now from text messages are released from the former volunteer coordinator from the KCRCC, Nina Beasley, that there is a group of people that has been getting together and orchestrating and coordinating and planning and doing things for Israel because they believe that they're God's chosen people. They believe that America needs to help this foreign country and give our money, our treasure, our blood for this country in the Middle East that has spied on us, attacked us, murdered American civilians, that operate criminal networks all throughout the United States. This is something new that we've found out from the American Conservative magazine. The FBI uses a secret threat category for Israeli criminals who operate in the United States. The article goes on to talk about all of these organized crime syndicates, Israeli-based organized crime syndicates that are operating in the United States. You know, and I read things like this, and it makes me wonder if maybe they're up here. Maybe they're here in Idaho. Maybe there's a reason why people at Candlelight Church are so feverish with their push to get their politicians in office, to appoint new police chiefs in Coeur d'Alene and Post Falls, why they keep the sheriff here, Bob Norris, on a leash. Is it because maybe I-90 is a major human trafficking hub? Is it because a lot of drugs and children and people flow right through Coeur d'Alene on I-90? Or maybe it's because there's drugs and children and bootlegging going on from Canada, and it's coming down Route 95 into Coeur d'Alene and then on to I-90 to take it to Chicago or to Seattle. Maybe that's what's going on. Maybe that's what these people are worried about protecting. I don't know. Frankly, I started looking into some of this stuff and it scared the living shit out of me. Because there's been a lot of that going on. There's a movie made called Kid Cannabis a couple decades ago about a guy here in Coeur d'Alene who got caught selling weed. They had Ron Perlman, the actor, and by the way, Epstein associate in the movie, playing an Israeli spy named Barry Lerner, who bought weed from this kid in Coeur d'Alene. It's odd. Go look it up yourself. Go check the Wikipedia. Go watch the movie. But the Russian mob is big in Spokane, for sure. Ukrainian, too. Jewish as well. The Rat Pack used to hang out in Spokane. Used to come vacation in Hayden Lake back in the 60s, 70s, and 80s. That's kind of who was on the ground of making this place popular. Back in the day, Bing Crosby. There's some connections there between Bing Crosby and some of the powerful families, the real estate families here in North Idaho. We'll get into that some other time. The point is that there's an election coming up in a couple of days, and these people at Candlelight are feverish. They're feverish about who they're going to get in. They want Dan Kukin, this pro-gay, pro-hate speech, pro-Israel, fat, weird guy with a lesbian haircut. And just 2 years ago, all of these people Stephanie Fetzer, Aaron Bernard, Nina Beasley, all of them, Lucky. They were all against Dan Gukin. Because Dan Gukin hated Christians. There's like no way around it. Like, he hates Christians. He referred once to the prayer before city council, before the city council meetings, as 3 minutes of wasted time. And his YouTube channel was full of these videos of him going on unhinged rants. I'll play one for you now.
They don't give a and they all, I'm a Bible-believing Christian, I believe in Jesus and it guides my life. And the Christian conservative, so Christian family values, Christian conservative, mindless cult member, group-thinking morons. Are you a pussy? You're a pussy. Christians, they tend to be the rudest, most disrespectful jerks I have ever seen. I seriously think if Jesus were here today, he would have a message for everyone who's a Christian, and he would just say, get the those racists and white supremacists. Gay? I felt really gay last night. Come over for a gay time. Really gay. Christian nationalism. Now, but let's cut right to the chase. It's white nationalism. Real hardcore Christians.
You get the idea. Okay, you get the idea. This is Dan Gukin. This is who he is. This is the kind of stuff that he used to put on his YouTube channel before he cozied up with Pastor Paul Van Noy and Candlelight and all of these people. And now, every one of them stepping up to bat. Art Mackomer endorsed this guy, by the way. For those of you in our community, some of these names will mean something. For those of you that are listening from afar, it might not mean that much. Just hang in there. We'll get to some actionable stuff soon, don't worry. But this is who this Christian church is. I mean, I think it's hysterical. I don't understand how stupid you'd have to be able to let this guy pull a fast one on you and pretend like he converted. I'm going to go to church now after I've spent years working with the gays, the trannies, the Human Rights Education Institute. And now all of a sudden I'm showing up at Paul Van Noy's church and it's all fine. And everybody just falls in line. It astounds me that this is where they're at. Now, there is something else that's interesting, and that is I mentioned that there was a connection between Dan Gukin and the Human Rights Education Institute. The whole Human Rights Education Institute thing is going to have to be a separate episode. I wrote an article about them a while ago, a couple of years ago. I'll pull it up on the screen. Oh, it doesn't let me do it. It doesn't let me do it if you go on your cell phone and you look. I wrote an article about, is the Human Rights Education Institute a front for foreign intelligence? Because a lot of the money that was used to start the HREI came from Israel. And it came from Israel through a stock deal with Greg Carr. We talked about this in the 9/11 episode a little bit. But something else that's interesting that I think is worth noting in this episode is the fact that Jeanette Laster, the executive director of the Human Rights Education Institute, has said that she associates with as many candlelight people as I do at NIC, with as many law enforcement as I do in the regular community members. I have board members that walk both sides of the political line. And this woman, of course, is the executive director of the Human Rights Education Institute, which hosts CDA for Pride. It hosted the transgender people in the park. You can see on the board is Sarah Lynch, the leader of the gay pride group here in Coeur d'Alene. And so these are the people involved at Candlelight Church. People without principles, people who are okay with the murder of women and children and babies, people who are okay with endorsing people like Dan Gukin for mayor. And, over the course of the last several days, Everything has been heating up. We've seen it. We've seen it heat up because of the cops getting called on us, but also because of Nick Fuentes and how Nick Fuentes was interviewed by Tucker Carlson. It was a watershed moment. It was something that the pro-Israel crowd has been trying to prevent from happening for years, almost a decade now, since a young 18-year-old Nick Fuentes was canceled by Cassie Dillon and the Daily Wire. And he explained all of that on Tucker. And this has really ignited a civil war in the GOP. It's America first versus Israel first. It's Christ the King versus Judeo-Christian. And it's free speech versus cancel culture. And this has come into the spotlight more clear now than it ever has before. And it's had a profound impact nationally as well as locally. Locally, here's what's been going on. People down south, a guy by the name of Mark Eaton, who is I believe a legislative district chair down in Canyon County, he said anti-Semitism must be addressed within American churches. It's quickly growing and needs to be stopped. I quoted the Bible, 1 Thessalonians 2:14 through 16, and said, read your Bible, Mark. And he comes out and says, you need to get away from worshiping Pope Pius X. Never, ever deny God's chosen people. Don't deny God's chosen people is what he says. And so I said back to him, you didn't address the scripture I referenced. Are you saying St. Paul is a liar or wrong in what he wrote in 1 Thessalonians? And he said, it's quite obvious from your comments that you are indeed an anti-Semite, not fit to be in the Republican Party. Your days as such may be limited. There are some serious changes being considered that may allow the party to expel folks like you. And what he's talking about is rule changes. He wants to change the rules of the Idaho Republican Party. They tried it a year and a half ago, and I led a coalition of people to get it defeated, and it was defeated thanks to people like Nina Beasley who helped. She's changed her stance. She's gone crazy in the past year. Don't know what the heck happened to her. She used to babysit my kids. That was a mistake. But the point is they're going to do a rule change. They want to make it so that as a part of the Idaho Republican Party platform, that if you don't support Israel, you aren't a real Republican. And they will be able to kick you out of the party if you don't vote to support Israel. They want complete totalitarian uniformity in their control of American politics. That's what's coming. And how are they going to do it? Well, in 198 days, there is going to be something called a precinct committee election. We're going to get into this a little bit more later. But the precinct committee election is where every precinct in the state, they work their way up, they matriculate up, and they form the county central committees. The county central committees form regional committees. The regional committees form the Idaho Republican State Central Committee. And these committees, these precinct committee officers, which are elected positions, vote on who will go to the GOP convention, which will be held in 2026. And at that convention, they will vote on rules and the platform of the Republican Party, which will set the tone for the next 2 years of the Republican Party in Idaho. And this happens in every single state. There are hundreds of thousands of precinct committee positions across the United States, and most of them are empty. You heard me right, empty. 30%, 40%, across Kansas, Oklahoma, Texas, those sparsely populated flyover states. People just don't show up. And that's why we lose, frankly. because it's a minority, a very highly motivated minority of people who show up and they have money and they control the party because we don't vote, because we sit on our asses and we complain without trying to do anything to change it. Now, that doesn't mean that even if we try, that, this isn't, I don't want to get into that argument about the difference of reform versus revolution. We've been talking about that. That's been a big theme on our show. But this is a legal, valid, free speech issue that we should be getting in on. Every single person that listens to this podcast should know who their precinct committee officer is, should be able to identify whether or not they are a Zionist, and if they are, they should be working on getting rid of them. Anywhere you are in the country, this applies. I don't care if you're in Chicago or Maine or New York City or Florida. These precinct committee positions are everywhere, and you do have a representative in the Republican Party, and you can find out who they are, you can call them up, you can quiz them, and if you don't like the answers that they give, you can primary them in 198 days on May 19th, 2026. So you got to pay attention, and you got to vote local. I'm not trying to get you to go out and cheerlead for Donald Trump or the presidency or to donate money to PACs or to the Republican Party. Save your money. You'll need it. But what we do need is good people who have their heads on straight running for these precinct positions. Because if we don't have good people with their heads on straight running for these precinct positions, they are going to be taken over by people from Candlelight. And it doesn't matter that Candlelight is a church in Coeur d'Alene. There are Candlelights in every county across the country. And their people are all being told the exact same thing about the woke right and about these Israel haters and these anti-Semites and groypers. And they are being hopped up on Israeli propaganda to go out and commit acts of violence, to report people to the police, to report people to the FBI. That's what's going on. And so, this is what happens when you consume this kind of Israeli propaganda, right? You get people like Josh Hammer calling for Nick Fuentes and Tucker to be neutralized, while people in your local area, like in my example, Stephanie Fetzer, is calling for me and Blonde and our friends to be rooted out of the community, that we have no place in North Idaho. Oh, really? Well, I'm not going anywhere, and neither is Rebecca. And everybody around us sees what you're doing. And the more that these pro-Israel people freak out, the more apparent it becomes to everyone else in the nation. And so just today, of course, I'm recording this at 1:25 a.m. Sunday morning, but on Saturday, Mark Levin and several other people addressed the Republican Jewish Coalition, talking about what they would do to people who don't support Israel. Let's take a listen to this clip.
For 6 months, I've been fighting these bastards, whether it's Tucker Carlson or whether it's Nick Fuentes, and I've been looking over my shoulder looking for help. And you know what I found? Nothing. Nothing. We're here today to do something about this. What do you mean we don't cancel people? We canceled David Duke. Donald Trump canceled David Duke. We canceled Pat Buchanan. We canceled the John Birch Society.
Oh, really?
We canceled Joseph Sobran. We canceled pornography on TV. We cancel stuff all the damn time. Hitler admirers, Stalin admirers, Jew haters, American haters, Churchill haters. You're damn right we're going to cancel them and deplatform them. It's called the market system. They don't have a lifetime job like a bureaucrat who we're going to protect. And if they're your friend, there's something wrong with you. No Hitler admirer, Holocaust denier, platformer should be anybody's friend, as a matter of fact.
Oh, really? Well, you know, someone disagrees with that, and it's someone significant, and that is the head of the Heritage Foundation, Kevin Roberts. Here's a clip.
I'll have more to say on this in the coming days, but today I want to be clear about one thing. Christians can critique the state of Israel without being anti-Semitic.
Oh.
And of course, anti-Semitism should be condemned. My loyalty as a Christian and as an American is to Christ first and to America always. When it serves the interests of the United States to cooperate with Israel and other allies, we should do so, with partnerships on security, intelligence, and technology. But when it doesn't, conservatives should feel no obligation to reflexively support any foreign government, no matter how loud the pressure becomes from the globalist class or from their mouthpieces in Washington. The Heritage Foundation didn't become the intellectual backbone of the conservative movement by canceling our own people or policing the consciences of Christians. And we won't start doing that now. We don't take direction from comments on X, though we are grateful for the robust free speech debate. We also don't take direction from members or donors, though we are inherently grateful for their support. And we're adding more every day. This is the robust debate we invite with our colleagues, our movement friends, our members, and the American public. We will always defend truth. We will always defend America, and we will always defend our friends against the slander of bad actors who serve someone else's agenda. That includes Tucker Carlson, who remains, and as I have said before, always will be a close friend of the Heritage Foundation. The venomous coalition attacking him are sowing division. Their attempt to cancel him will fail. Most importantly, the American people expect us to be focusing on our political adversaries on the left, not attacking our friends on the right. I disagree with, and even abhor, things that Nick Fuentes says. But canceling him is not the answer either. When we disagree with a person's thoughts and opinions, we challenge those ideas in debate. And we have seen success in this approach as we continue to dismantle the vile ideas of the left. As my friend Vice President Vance said last night, what I am not okay with is any country coming before the interest of American citizens, and it is important for all of us, assuming we are American citizens, to put the interest of our own country first. That's where our allegiance lies, and that's where it will stay.
Bravo. Now, of course, Kevin Roberts did kind of take a half step back from this. But the amount of screeching that we got from the pro-Israel crowd, as he said, the venomous coalition, right? We saw Mark Levin freaking out, talking, oh, well, we cancel people. We cancel people, all right. We canceled the John Birch Society. Okay. Well, thanks for telling us that. Later in his speech, Mark Levin, jumping back and forth a little bit, says that Americans should be thanking Israel. Check this out.
We have this all wrong. Oh, we give Israel $3 billion a year. Oh, they're a protectorate. We, Europe, people of freedom, Jews, Christians, people who believe in liberty around the world, we need to thank the Israelis for what they've been doing. We need to thank them for using their soldiers to fight an enemy that the rest of the world refused to fight.
Unbelievable. We need to thank them for killing women and children and raping prisoners with a red-hot bayonet up their butt. Don't mean to be a little crass here, but that's what's going on. That's what Mark Levin wants us to thank Israel for. And then you have people like this guy speaking at the same coalition, this Republican Jewish Coalition Summit, Shabbos Kestenbaum, who's literally a Democrat. He's a Democrat, and he's going to go to the Republican Jewish Coalition to tell Republicans who they should cancel, who they should fight, that instead of fighting the left, the trannies, the LGBT mafia, the Clintons, the Obamas, instead of fighting the left, you should fight some kid with a podcast in Chicago, Tucker Carlson, Candace Owens, Dave Riley, and Rebecca Hargraves. That's who you should be fighting. And as Republicans, we're going to take that. We're going to let these types of people get on our central committees and make our policy and make our rules and our platform demanding that the United States goes and fights Israel's wars for another 20 years, demanding that we spend our blood and treasure on a spit of desert in the Middle East with no resources or strategic importance at all. And this to them is the most important thing. And they're willing to cancel and deplatform and blackmail and extort anybody who gets in their way. And they call it a market system. That's what Mark Levin called it earlier today. He called it a market system. Well, I got news for you. That's not free markets. Can you hear me? That's not a free market. That's gangsterism. That is totalitarianism. It's Jewish totalitarianism. It is anti-Christ totalitarianism. That's what that is. And these are the people that, for the most part, already make up most of the Republican Party. And that's why this election on May 19th is interesting. Because if enough people woke up to this, and if enough people ran for precinct committee officers, maybe for once in a very long time, we could reconstitute a Republican Party in the image and likeness of the American people, as opposed to the image and likeness of Mark Levin, of Ben Shapiro, Shabbos Kestenbaum, the people at Candlelight. Wouldn't that be like a novel idea? To, I don't know, have a party that is made up of people that want to put America first, people that care about the plight of the middle class working white man in this country? Isn't that interesting? And so that's the pitch. That's what I want to talk about. There's this Republican civil war brewing, and we've seen the cracks of it. We know where this is going to go locally. That's easy to see. Candlelight Christian Fellowship, the Zionist church, is going to team up with a group called the North Idaho Republicans, which is a group led by the daughter of an FBI agent, former FBI agent, Wayne Maness, the guy who pulled Randy Weaver off the mountain in the early 1990s and put him in handcuffs and took him to jail. That guy's daughter is the leader of this Republican faction, the establishment Republicans, as we would call them. And they're going to team up with these Zionist Republicans to take out anybody on the Central Committee who is Catholic, or who wants to put America first. Because remember, to these people, Catholicism equals anti-Semitism. And anti-Semitism is anti-Americanism. And essentially, you are tantamount to a Hamas terrorist if you're Catholic. That's what they told Hendrik Mills, one of the people on the Central Committee up here. Sorry for all the name dropping, by the way. I know that most of you don't live up here. You're not into the local lore. But there are a few people up here that do listen to this podcast, and they've been asking. They've been curious what's going on. So I figured I'd drop a couple names. But this is what's going on. This is the Republican Civil War. And there is an opportunity for those of us that are awake to these problems, that see where this country is headed, off a cliff, by the way, and want to do something about it, right? It's one thing to be able to get prepared, buy gold, buy silver, buy Bitcoin, right? You have a family, you're educating them properly, you're not sending them to public school, you're homeschooling, you're private schooling, right? You're working out your parallel economy job, making money independent of the system. But what else can you do? Well, this is what you can do. You can run for precinct committee officer in every single precinct across the United States. There are probably over 100,000 of these positions that will be open for you to take. And all that it requires is that you go and knock on your neighbor's doors and have a conversation. Knock, knock. Hi, how are you? I'm your neighbor. I live right up the street. Do you have a minute to talk politics? You know, and either you get the door slammed in your face or you get somebody that wants to talk with you. And you feel them out. Where are they at? Do you like where the country's headed? Do you like what's been going on in the Republican Party? Do you support Israel? Oh, you don't? Me neither. Well, here's what's going on. And explain to them that you're running to put America first. And to put your county first, to put your precinct first, to put your people first. You can do that. There's literally nothing stopping you. You don't have to join a radical movement. You don't have to spend a lot of money. You need maybe 5 signatures to get on a ballot or $50, depending on where you live. It is not that big of a hurdle. And the best part is you get to meet people along the way. You get to meet your neighbors. You get to make friends. You get to influence people. It's a good book, by the way, Making Friends and Influencing People. You should probably read it. And in doing this exercise of knocking on your neighbors' doors, getting to know them, feeling them out, seeing where they are, you are building a network. You're building a network that will benefit you and your family in the case of a disaster or a crisis. In the case of a collapse of the American way of life, you'll at least know who lives around you, who you can trust, who you can work with. That's helpful. Maybe you'll find a future business partner or something. I don't know. But it's definitely not futile to do that, to know who your neighbors are. It's not a bad idea. It's not an extremist thing to do. It's actually a normal thing. It'll help social cohesion to know who the hell you're living around. Because a lot of us have moved. Because there's been a lot of displacement in this country because of the mass immigration that has been unrelenting for the past 20 years. I've moved 27 times myself. I'm sure a lot of you have moved a lot over the years as well. The neighborhoods we grew up in as kids aren't the same neighborhoods anymore because the people aren't the same people anymore. Everyone knows that. So I'm not trying to get you to become a Republican shill, okay? I am not trying to get you to donate your money to the Republican Party or to Donald Trump or to J.D. Vance. What I'm saying is that you should be the change in the Republican Party that you want to see. It's pretty simple. And if you have a problem with that, then let me know in the comments, as I'm sure you will. There's going to be a lot of people that have a problem with that. I don't know why. I don't get it. Some people are just defeatist. The Jews control everything and there's nothing we could do. As if they haven't been kicked out of 109 countries over 1,000 times. Okay, sure. There's nothing we can do. Got it. Black pilling. I'm not a black pillar. Now, Cameron, he thinks that change is going to come from the top down. And I think that that's necessary. But I like with this conversation about revolution and reform, and both happening simultaneously, not to the exclusion one of the other. Like in Cuba, I don't know if you've studied the Cuban Revolution with Castro, but they had a revolutionary movement coupled with civic activism. And that is what produced change in Cuba. Now, we can argue about whether the change was good or bad. I'm not here to talk about that. I'm not a communist. But it produced social change. And we want also to produce social change in this country, to get back to Christ the King, to get back to law and order, to get back to a country of, by, and for the people that founded this country. And so, just as there is this dichotomy between revolution and reform, there's a dichotomy between change coming from the top down and the bottom up at the same time. I think that they're linked. I don't think that one needs to be focused on to the exclusion of the other. I think that in order to make this country right again, that it's going to take all of us, people operating at the highest levels, people operating at the neighborhood levels. It is going to take everyone working together as one, as a collective, to put America first. That's what is needed. One person can't move this ship of a country. It's too big. There are too many parts. There's too many people. It's going to take hundreds of thousands of all of us working together like our lives depend on it to make change happen. And if we don't make that change happen, then we will cease to exist as a nation. Full stop. And it's not just America. I don't know how things go in Europe. I don't know how their political party structure works. I don't know how the AfD is made. I know that they rely a lot more on third parties over there. They have a different kind of democratic system than we have over here. We're stuck with this bullshit two-party system. And in Idaho, for example, we're basically a one-party state. 70% of the state is Idaho. 70% of the state is Republican. So you have to be a Republican to enact any kind of law or change in Idaho. That's different in different states. Some states are blue, some states are purple. 50-50, swing states. But in Idaho, if you want to make a difference, run for governor, run for legislature, all of these things, you're going to have to do it as a Republican. And if the Zionists take over the Republican Party and prevent anyone who is America first from being able to participate, then we are guaranteed to have a system run by Zionists for the benefit of a foreign country, not for our benefit. That's what I'm trying to drive home here. So mark that date in your calendars, March 19th. It's going to be a big deal. And just to drive it home, I did spend like 3 seconds making the dumbest explainer chart. But I'll show you here. You've got your county. Your county is divided into precincts. Each precinct gets one representative, a precinct committee officer. Those precinct committee officers are elected on the ballot and they come together to form the County Central Committee. The County Central Committees from all across the state, or the region anyway, they form a regional committee, and then they form the state committee. And then each state committee goes to the national GOP convention where they vote on who runs the GOP. It's a huge machine. It's a machine. And yeah, it's designed to chew up and spit out people like us. I get it. And not every state has elected precinct committee officers. I know in Nevada, for example, that's not how it works. They don't go on the ballot. I don't know how that system works. But for the majority of states that do have elected precinct officers, this is how the structure works. And there is nothing between you and getting on there, getting on those committees and making your voice heard, making the arguments, making a convincing emotional argument to other precinct committee officers for why we shouldn't support Israel to our detriment. Hello, Bueller? So anyway, that's my idea. That's my big idea that I'm bringing to the table here. I want to contribute. I want to see our country pull up. I don't want our country to fall apart. I've got 3 kids. I'm going to have more. I want them to grow up in a country where they have a future, as I'm sure you do for your kids and your grandkids. And so this bitching and complaining without doing anything hasn't been working. Granted, we've been spreading the gospel, if you will, spreading the bad news of what has happened to our country. Millions of people are waking up thanks to the Tucker Carlson, Nick Fuentes interview, thanks to the years and decades of activism of people from the right who have been ringing the alarm bells on this. And by the way, it has been decades. All the way back to World War II, people have been ringing the alarm bells about this. The John Birch Society was right there. But that's another story. They got subverted very early on because we're not allowed to have nice things in this country. So that's it. That's my plan. March 19th, run for precinct committee officer. You should do it. I would encourage you to look into it. Find out who your PC is. Find out who your representatives are. Because there is a civil war in the GOP right now, and we should be taking up arms, rhetorical arms, and fighting in it. Because the future of our country is at stake. By the way, the same structure in all of this applies to the Democrats as well. But those people hate us. They want unrelenting streams of third world immigration. They don't understand economics. They're stupid. So I just don't see a viable option with the Democrats or even an alliance with these people. They hate us. So that's it. That's what I've got for you. There is an election also coming up on November 4th, I believe. November 4th is Tuesday. So if you can, make sure that you vote in your local election. Know who you're voting for. Don't vote for a Zionist stooge. Do some research while you can. Vote for the right people. And pray for this country. It's the beginning of November. As a Catholic, we go through this All Saints and All Souls thing where we commemorate all of the saints that have given their blood, given their lives for the truth, for the church, for their people, for their posterity. Because that's what a martyr is. They're dying for the truth. And we need their help. And so we pray for them. We pray to them. We pray for them. All the people that have come before us, our ancestors, our forefathers. And so do that. We'll be visiting a cemetery coming up for a few days, praying the rosary. It's a good thing to do. Anyway, please make sure you like and subscribe. to our podcast, The Backlash. We will be back on Monday with Emily Youcis, the the amazing illustrator and creator of the Will Stancil Show. We will be talking with her on Monday. Then we've got Adam Irving coming up the following Monday. And of course, our regular shows on Wednesday at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific with Rebecca and Cameron McGregor. I'm David Riley. Thank you for joining me. God bless you and have a good evening. Bye-bye.